And welcome to New Jersey Politics with Laura Jones. I am Laura Jones, and we are so glad to have you here. Severe flooding has become an all too familiar challenge for communities across New Jersey. In Essex County, a new effort is underway to tackle this growing crisis head on. Local leaders from the 34th Legislative District have formed the Regional Flood Mitigation Committee, a united front aimed at securing state and federal resources to combat flooding across municipal lines. Standing by is Bloomfield Mayor Jenny Mundell to discuss this initiative and what it means for the community. First, though, there's a growing concern for New Jersey residents, and that is fraud. In 2024, AARP's Fraud Watch Network received over 350 calls from New Jerseyans who lost an average of $38,000 each to increasingly clever and relentless scams. To help combat this rising threat, AARP New Jersey is stepping up with a special summit at NJIT on April 7th, aimed at arming Garden State residents with the tools to protect themselves. Joining us now is Chris Widelo. He is AARP New Jersey State Director. Chris, it's good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit about what's going on. There was over 350 calls and an average of $38,000. What is going on?
Yeah, we just looked at statistics from January to June of 2024, and we had almost 370 calls. And an average person was about 72 years old, and the average amount of money that was lost due to this fraud was about $38,000, which is staggering. That's a lot of money. And we're seeing it through imposter scams, like imposter businesses. Your toll collections, or you're calling from a credit card company, right? A real popular one.
I've been seeing that on my cell phone. Is that the same thing?
It is the same thing. I have 5 of them on my phone right now that I saved just as an example. And then also computer virus scams, still tried and true. It's one that gets a lot of people, and so. Really, we are working with people to protect themselves, to really be informed about what they need to be on the lookout for.
Now, you were talking about how it seems to be those over 70 are a little bit more at risk, but anybody can fall victim to it. Can you talk a little bit about how you said they're getting creative and they're very persistent? What's happening?
Yeah.
They throw. I've seen it. A text on my phone about uncollected tolls. My daughter saw one.
Right.
My parents are out of state, but can you give us some examples of what people are seeing and how they're hooking them in?
Yeah, these criminals are preying on people's emotions, right? So either something that they are really concerned about, or something that they care about a lot, and when they kind of find that person that is susceptible, right, they're able to usually fraud them out of a good amount of money. So we call it getting under the ether. So there's something that is appealing to them. Maybe their sense of I want to do the right thing. I don't want to be somebody who has delinquent tolls, right? And so they automatically click that link, which is the worst thing that you can do. Or oh yeah, I guess my credit card must be late, so I'm going to respond to that email that came through. We know that credible business does not take place via text, via emails, and even really you can't trust over the phone now. You have to be proactive. You can't allow this information to be pushed to you. You have to go out and do the legwork to make sure that it is legitimate.
Yeah, see, that's very difficult because so much is conducted online. Things look very legitimate, and even people who are on top of it can easily figure out. So, again, what if you accidentally hit that button? Like, oh, let me just see. Are you sunk? What do you do? How can AARP help?
Sure. I think, if it looks suspicious, delete it immediately if you can. Report it as spam if it's an email, if it's a phone call, hang up. But if you do accidentally click that link, don't enter any of your personal information. You shouldn't be through a link putting in your social security number, your bank account information. You shouldn't be paying bills by gift cards or crypto, which is untraceable. So these fraudsters, who are criminals, are looking for ways to be under the radar. But I think and then I think after that, check your bank accounts, check your credit, go online, look at your credit card statement, bank account, to make sure there's no suspicious activity, and if you see it, report it immediately.
Yeah, so you have a summit coming up April 7th at New Jersey Institute of Technology, NJIT. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What people can expect, things you're going to talk about, cover?
Yeah, that's going to be a great afternoon, or late morning and afternoon, talking about the different frauds that you need to be aware of, and really what to do if you find yourself a victim. I think many people they don't want to report it, or they feel like they've they've been duped, and they don't want to be embarrassed. This is a crime. This is the same if somebody came up to you on the sidewalk and said, give me your wallet. We would say, oh, poor person, I can't believe that happened to you. You really feel terrible. But for some reason, when it happens online or when it's fraud, we don't have the same reaction. But we have to treat this as a crime. It is a crime. It's a billion-dollar crime. When you look at across the country in the last year, 42% of people are victims of fraud every single year.
How many?
42% of Americans, right? And so it's it's really
That's an
about
extraordinary
141
number.
million people, and it's a billion-dollar industry. So we have to educate people and let them know what to do, where they can go if they find themselves a victim, and ways that to protect themselves.
Can you talk a little bit about AARP's Fraud Watch Network? Fraud Watch Network.
Yes.
How this is a lifeline, how they can access it, get information. Tell us about it.
It's a great service, and you don't have to be an AARP member. You don't have to be older. It is trained professionals that can help you navigate what to do if you are a victim of fraud. So if you find yourself in the situation where maybe you've sent somebody money and then realize, oh my gosh, that was fraudulent, file a police report first. Even if they say, not worth it, insist that you file it. Because if there is somebody caught, there could be a possibility you get some restitution. And then you can call the Fraud Watch Network, or you can go visit us online at aarp.org/fraudwatchnetwork. And from there, you will see resources. There's a phone number if you want to talk to somebody. They also provide some light level counseling, because sometimes people need to speak to somebody to let them know it's okay, that they are a victim of a crime, and how they can cope with this. Because often people, I've seen it in my own family, just don't want to talk about it, or feel bad that they somehow got fell victim.
These are professionals.
They are professionals.
They are professionals who know how to manipulate. Even they know that people are busy. They know that people, if they see something, they want to get it done. One less thing on the to-do list, and or even if you don't mean to, you accidentally click, well, this actually does look legitimate, because so much does happen. Even you're even saying, hey, you can go online to AARP.
Sure.
So can you talk a little bit about, people, especially the elderly, they want to talk to somebody, and they need to maybe vent this through and understand, because it is complicated, and they want to understand, how did this happen, and how do I prevent it from happening again?
Well, I think to your point, know who your trusted resources are, right? So I think many of us know where to go for our bank, where to go for our information, or at least you have to kind of vet it a little bit. But I think often there's links that we're saying, that doesn't look like that place where I should be going, or it looks off, and I think that's it. You're being bombarded, right? It's coming at you at 100 miles an hour from different areas, by phone, by text, by email, and so it does require us to do a lot of, critical thinking about it. And so that's why we're having things like the summit, to help people understand, like, what is it that you need to know, and how can you, best protect yourself, and also what you can trust and what you can't trust, and then what to do if you have questions, right? Or talk to a family member, talk to somebody else and say, hey, I got this, what do you think? Is this legitimate? Because I think sometimes, you just need like a second opinion. So, all the information for this summit, encourage people to go to aarp.org/NJ. They can find more information on the summit and register, and it should be a great crowd there.
I'm still stuck on that number. $38,000. So what's happening? All right. So I think so many people, and I've seen people posting about this, saying unpaid tolls, and you think, oh gosh, maybe my Easy Pass didn't work. Maybe I do have something that I didn't. So what's happening that it gets to you're handing over $38,000? Are they, can you tell me what's, more specifically what's happening?
They're very elaborate schemes. We see things like romance scams, where people are building a relationship with someone online over time, and it probably speaks to something that someone has, a need for companionship or love, and they become very connected to this person who they'll never meet in person.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so this is good. All right, we're not even talking tolls anymore. So wait, what's happening?
Well, looking at an example, how you might hand over $38,000 at one time,
okay, gotcha.
right? Mm-hmm. And then before you know it, the person's in some type of distress and says, "Can you help me out with some money?" And they might wire them, and then you never hear from the person again. The tolls, I think, are probably more incremental, but it all adds up, right? If everybody kicks in $100, because they're saying, "I don't want to be delinquent. I don't want my Easy Pass shut off."
Right.
It adds up. And so, there are some that are probably smaller in nature, but, cumulatively it's a lot of money, and others that are significant chunks of people's savings that are being turned over to fraudsters.
And then I think the other thing is, once you have that information, And if you think, oh, well, I only gave this person $100, or oh, I just paid this account. Is that what, now they have your bank information and they're like constantly drawing on it? Like, what's happening?
That can be one thing, and they're also, have a large pool of people, right, that they're approaching.
Yeah.
And so, yes, but, and I think that's the other piece is, how we protect our banking information, so there isn't this repeated type of fraud happening, this crime. And it's one of these things in the age of technology where there's so much of it, even online dating, even Facebook, even any kind of social media where you're interacting with people. If you don't know the person, don't interact with them. If we always think of it as, don't trust the information that's being pushed to you. Go and seek it out yourself, and really, verify that this is legitimate.
All right. So I've got aging parents myself. I have young adults, kids who are about ready to go into college, still in high school. So I can see them, on both ends of that spectrum being vulnerable. What advice, do you have for, people navigating children on one end, aging parents on the other, and then, we can easily be victimized ourselves. Give me some pointers.
Yeah.
What do I do to help protect my kids, to protect my parents, to protect myself?
I think it is talking about it, right? And I think, with aging parents, for one, making sure that they are aware that, information should only come to you in a certain way. If you owe something, if you are behind in your taxes, or, you have a violation, it's going to come by mail. And then you can also follow up by looking into your account online to make sure, there is a violation there. For younger adults, I think it's the same. You really do have to just talk to them and say, you have to be aware and savvy that, their lives are very much connected to the online community, whether it's, social media or doing all their banking and transactions online. Just have to really watch things very carefully.
Yeah, I mean, when my daughter got her apartment, it was, how do we pay the rent? Like, it's like, wait a minute, wait, you're not writing a check.
Right,
like,
right.
Because the younger generation does things electronically. It's, auto pays are set up. The older generation, they're still doing things the old school way. So it is balancing. It is balancing quite a bit. But AARP, people think, oh, well, you have to be a certain age to go there. No. So what can we find there? Where should we look on your website for more information?
Yeah, sure. Really invite everyone to check out aarp.org/NJ. From there, you'll see information on our upcoming fraud conference on April 7th, and then also links to where you can get more information broadly on our Fraud Watch Network activities. You don't need to be a member, and you don't need to be older. It's a resource for everyone.
And you don't have to pay.
You don't have to pay. It's free. Yes. It's good information.
All right. Any other final thoughts that you want to leave the viewers with before what they need to know about this and the upcoming summit, or if they want to attend the summit coming up?
I hope folks will come out to Newark at NJIT. I think it's going to be a wonderful afternoon. We'll have experts there talking about the different types of things that are really happening right in the moment, like the most prevalent fraud that we're seeing right now, and then really what to do when you're a victim, because people feel like, oh, it's hopeless. Like, I've lost the money, it's gone. But there are steps you can take, and also to make sure that you're getting the shoulder to lean on, to say, to let you know that you've been a victim of a crime, and this is a serious thing. So you should not beat yourself up over something like this.
That validation's important.
It really is.
Reporting it's important.
Yes.
And it's not necessarily a lost cause. You might be able to recoup some of your money.
Yeah, in some cases you can.
Okay. Well, Chris, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Laura.
Yep. Bloomfield Mayor Jenny Mundell is joining me now to talk about flooding in Essex County. It is a growing problem in the area, so much so that local leaders have joined together to form the Regional Flood Mitigation Committee. Mayor, welcome. It's good to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me, Laura.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about how we got here, why the committee was formed. Can you talk about the specific flooding challenges Bloomfield is chasing and how that is really underscoring the need for a regional approach?
Absolutely. So in Bloomfield, like many areas across Essex County and across New Jersey, we are experiencing increased flooding. We have found that areas that we didn't see as much flooding have gotten worse, particularly since 2021 after Ida. In Bloomfield in particular, we have a number of canals and rivers that connect by us. And so we're seeing the water table itself actually rise. And we know that we need to work together across municipalities to address that. We also know that flood water does not respect municipal boundaries. So that is why we came together with some of the other cities in the region to create this committee.
Yeah, well, can you talk a little bit about the coalition? You've got leaders from 7 municipalities. It's along with you have state and federal lawmakers. So can you talk a little bit about working across those borders and how that kind of strengthens your ability to address flooding in your area as opposed just to trying to tackle it on your own?
Sure. So there's a couple of things that we know that we need to address. Number one, a few years ago, we did a flood study in Bloomfield. And when that report came back from the engineers, we noted that what they were suggesting would cost us around $180 million to fix. And we know that the municipality alone can't address that. But part of the issue with that study was that anything that we do to address flood mitigation in Bloomfield is necessarily going to impact the surrounding municipalities as well. And then in addition to that, we know that funding itself is a problem for us. So we are going to have to rely on others to help us to address some of these issues. So along with the infrastructure issues that we're going to have to address across the municipalities, we're also going to have to address these issues from a funding perspective across municipalities. And we can only do that with the support of our state assembly and our federal partners.
Yeah, well, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, they've visited sites in Bloomfield and other towns. Can you talk a little bit about the locations they're looking at, what they're finding, what they've been able to tell you?
For sure. So a few weeks ago, we met with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. We toured locations in Glen Ridge, Netley, Bloomfield, and Belleville. Just as a start, we also had some partners there from Montclair. And I believe that they'd had a study done a few years prior to that. So the benefit of having the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers come in is that they can then take a more holistic look at the ways in which they might be able to support us. So in Bloomfield, we looked specifically at an area we commonly refer to as the Meolis Ave and Watsessing corridor, which is actually a floodplain. And then in addition to that, we looked along an area on Newark Avenue, which was hard hit by Ida, had almost 6 feet of water rising during the storm.
Wow. So can you talk a little, what is this due because there was past storm damage? Is there more development? Like, have they been able to assess, like, what is the root cause?
I'm not sure yet what we can say the root cause is. I think some of it's climate change. I think it is probably development, but development throughout the past 40 years that we've seen in town. So Bloomfield itself is, as I mentioned before, built on top of a series of canals and 2 rivers. We have the second river and the third river. So naturally, when we change infrastructure, when we change the way the ground looks, it creates additional issues for us.
Yeah. Well, so many towns across New Jersey have had to deal with flooding and had some success with it. I'm just thinking back to my days when I was first starting to cover as a reporter. Hamilton and Mercer County had flooding issues. I live in Lambertville, certainly a lot of issues. So this committee, the goals include, you want to secure state and federal money. So can you talk about those resources and how you make real progress? And do you have any idea what kind of projects that you envision for this support that they're asking for?
Yeah, so I think we have to wait for the Army Corps of Engineers to come back to us with their recommendations because, again, they take that holistic look at the issue. But we know that there's already been money spent by residents, by business owners, by insurance companies, and by the city to address some of these flooding issues. So we can put something of a dollar value toward that, which is one of the things that the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and, in fact, the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection had encouraged us to do, because we need to be able to demonstrate holistically what that cost is, and then potentially what the cost is moving forward. So like I had said before, if we were to look at Bloomfield alone, we're looking at $180 million worth of projects. So that number will just increase when we look across the region. However, we can save money across the region if we do it together.
Yeah. Well, and in flooding, when you talk about those costs, it's more than just damaging homes and businesses. It's a real public safety issue. And we've heard that from other mayors as well. What are some of the immediate concerns that you're hearing from the people in Bloomfield, the residents there, and how are you addressing those right now?
Sure. So we have heard from a number of residents in particular that their basements have incurred a lot of damage. And that's a concern for the foundations for their homes. Again, folks who've invested in businesses that are along the second and third river, they have some concerns as well because they're really worried about the infrastructure over there. Some of the things we've done in Bloomfield, we actually have a boat now. We have asked our fire department now to be certified to take that boat to save folks if they need it. So that's part of our strategy. But in addition to that, some of the things we're doing is shoring up our ordinances to make sure that they are more flood restrictive. So when builders are coming in, when developers are coming in, when folks are even building their home, we're trying to take a more regional approach to standardize some of those ordinances, make sure that everybody's following the same guidelines.
So in the here and now, we've heard from members of the assembly that represent your area in Trenton. They talk about the financial strain that it's putting on taxpayers and local government. Can you talk a little bit about how it's affecting your budget? I mean, you're in charge of the budget. And what are some of the savings that you're hoping this regional strategy could deliver?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the damage that can be incurred is worse if we don't address this. And so we are concerned about adding the cost of any project to the municipal tax base. So again, we have to work across the region to think through how do we do this to prevent flooding moving forward, to mitigate flooding and the damage that is incurred that will cost us infinitely more than perhaps what happens, just when we have to pay for this in general. So
yeah. So, I mean, also as you're going through this and you're trying to troubleshoot and come up with solutions, when you're working with other municipalities, a lot of times just getting something passed locally can be challenging. So you're dealing with multiple municipalities, local ordinances, looking to update. So can you give me some examples of maybe regulations or certain things that you would like to adjust in your town that would align with this regional flood mitigation plan?
Yes, so I think a lot of it has to do with zoning. So we have to take a hard look at our zoning to determine where we will allow folks to build in the future, what kind of impervious ground cover that we have. We need to maybe encourage folks to utilize different types of materials that are pervious, that allow water to drain better. And I should have mentioned this before, but some of the other things that we're doing in the immediate instances, pre-flooding, our Department of Public Works is doing a lot of work to clean out drainage, to make sure that in advance of any storm that we know that's pending, that we're doing the work to make sure as best we can to create some immediate relief for residents.
Yeah. Do you have any advice for people who live there right now? April showers bring May flowers, right? So we don't know how rainy of a season we're going to get this spring. What advice, resources do you have for homeowners and how to best protect themselves, right? They may not, obviously, moving isn't necessarily realistic, but any things that they can do to protect themselves, because there's not a lot you can do to stop the floodwaters from coming. What advice are you giving those people who you represent in your town?
So in the immediate time, things we tell residents are make sure when you are putting your garbage out that you keep it covered. One of the things we have done recently is pass an ordinance that restricts feeding of wildlife in flood areas because believe it or not, that creates additional flooding. Again, if you have a storm drain that is right outside your home, DPW will come and help you clean it out. You can also take a broom and sweep it out yourself. Littering is a problem, right? So we tell folks, make sure to get rid of that garbage in proper receptacles and make sure it's all covered.
So wait, I want to go back to feeding wildlife. How does that affect flooding? I mean, I know you're not supposed to feed wildlife in general, but how does that affect flooding?
Yeah, sure. So if you give me 1 second, I will tell you a little bit more.
Yeah, that's something that I hadn't heard of. And as you're looking at that, I'm thinking some of the other things. Are people who live there, is there a risk that they could lose their insurance? I know that especially areas along the shore, people are, things are being reclassified. That's a DEP issue, a little bit different, the Department of Environmental Protection that you're dealing with. But are you hearing concerns on that area and in that area as well?
I think fortunately or unfortunately, right, that there are folks who are required to get flood insurance if they're in a floodplain. So we haven't seen an increase so much in the floodplain. So I think that's less of a concern at the moment, but it's certainly something that we need to keep an eye on. To answer your question before about wildlife feeding, it was, I believe, back in 2023, just to meet the standard of DEP stormwater management regulations, we did pass an ordinance that prohibits wildlife feeding near water sources. And that, in fact, apparently reduces pollution and animal overpopulation that can affect waterways.
Okay, all right. Well, that makes sense. That makes sense. Finally, as we close out our segment here, what are the next steps for the committee, and how can residents, one, if they want to chime in, if they want to learn more about it, if they want to learn what they can expect to see as far as tangible results go, can you talk a little bit about these next steps for the committee?
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, we are waiting on the report that should come back from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers in the next few weeks. So once we have that, we'll take that into account. I know that a lot of us have done flood water studies that we also gave to the Army Corps of Engineers to consider where they're coming back, consider when they are writing that report for us. So in terms of residents wanting to get more involved, I would encourage everybody to reach out to your local mayors, particularly in the municipalities that are involved. All of us are speaking, all of us are collaborating. We all know that this is important, and we are all committed to addressing it.
All right. Mayor Jenny Mundell, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, Laura.
Absolutely. And that's going to do it for today. I'm Laura Jones. Thanks so much for watching New Jersey Politics. We look forward to seeing you back here next time.